let's move on. I just want to maybe go through an example of a project that you've done. Just some of what it was, what you found, and how you added value, really.
Okay, yeah. So the ones, the initial, obviously at the start, there was the buy, refurb, remortgage. So there was a lot of sort of standard properties as such. So it would have been buying a property and would have been a sort of standard refurbs, a new kitchen, new bathroom, and sort of adding value in that way. I've done a sort of number of sort of buying and selling properties as well, where so adding value through either creating other rooms and then they've been rented out, or adding value sort of through full refurbishment. So some properties have gone back to brick and had a complete refurb and done it that way. So I always was focusing more on buy to let and doing it basically building the portfolio. But I used sort of the buy and sells to try and make some extra money as well to help with the buy to let debt. So mixture of both really. So buying and selling and buy to let.
And I guess the sourcing and the buying and the selling side, they feed the other side of the business, right? They feed the growing your portfolio and your credibility that side as well. You get to pick the ones that meet your criteria in the right area, and flip on or source to other people the ones you don't need.
Yeah, so everyone always said as well, why are you sourcing them on? Is anything wrong with them, or why do people source properties? And a lot of time it's an excess of, you can have 5 of the same type of deal that are all good, so you can't buy them all. But there are, as you get into property, you realise it's different strategies and so many different ways of. So for me now, let's say for argument's sake, the house is 100,000 and it makes £300 a month as a single let. And it's 15, even if it's 15-20% below the position I'm in now, it's not really what I'm looking for because I've got enough of those type of properties. However, it's still a great deal, which can be for somebody else building their portfolio up. And similarly, it works the other way, where you can get something that some people won't look at flats or just want flats. So you get, and that's what I always say. It's the way we source a lot of the time as well. Is you see a lot of people that will just build a list and blast out properties and wait for the bites from the list, so to speak, which is fine. But we always try to do it the other way, whereas a smaller list and get to know what someone actually wants. Because a 2-bed flat at 30% below is not a good deal for someone if they're not interested in 2-bed flats. And so it's really getting to know what other people want, which was how I sort of built the sourcing side alongside my portfolio.
You also touched on an interesting point, actually, that would have worked for you and what stacked for you previously sometimes might not stack for you now. Yeah. And I can only relate that to us when when doing development projects is, a block of 3 or 4, 5 flats wouldn't work for us because we've got a bigger machine to feed, right? The margins aren't quite there, but it would work perfectly for a self-builder or someone who just wants to get going in that area.
Yeah, completely.
So there's nothing wrong with the deal per se. Yeah. It just doesn't meet your criteria for what you need right now.
Yeah, I mean, I know someone who's very well off, but I look at developments under $500,000. That's their sort of sweet spot. And really, when they're just buying and selling properties, I mean, this year they've looked for just 3 to 4 smaller units. So their target this year is to do 4 flips and try and make 25,000 on each. So relatively, for what I know, they've got, whether it's in the bank or wherever it is, I know they've got access to a lot more funds than that, but they're just happy on that level. And that's really important as well. It's getting to the point. I suppose it's the when is enough, because a lot of people, like I say, you got 20 buy to lets, or I've got to get to 25, or you do £1 million development, well, I've got to go on to 2 million now. But sometimes that's them and people get into trouble because they keep pushing that boundary and then maybe not got that experience. And I'm very honest, and maybe one day it'll happen, but I've never gone anywhere near a 10, 15, 20 million pound development. But not to say I never will, but that is kind of like, well, that's out of my comfort zone. So there's lots of people doing very well out of them, but it just is, it's knowing what sort of field you want to play in, I think, sometimes.
And that goes back to feeding your end goal, your life goals, really.
Yeah.
Like you said, why do a £20 million development if you look at what you're trying to achieve in the first place, and actually it doesn't tie in anyway?
Yeah, that's it.
Warren Buffett says, why, almost, I'm paraphrasing completely here, why why risk everything when you're already rich? Like sometimes.
Well, he's another interesting one. When I read on some of the stuff he does, and he might not make an investment for 5 years, but when he does, it'll make him. Well, he's trying to make a lot with it, and that's the thing as well. Somebody also said to me that certain people, they get to a level where you've made a certain amount of money. It's about keeping that as well as reinvesting and growing, and just being smart with the investments and making sure that. Because I was like this, I was too eager at the start, definitely, and I'd think, I want to get that next one, and even then when I got to sort of 10, 15 properties, I was keen to keep building. That can be a mistake because you can then veer off what you're actually looking for, and you can maybe up a little bit more on the offer just because you think it's another property, and that's the key thing is keep know where you want to get to and sort of try not to veer from that.